All right, we're live, guys.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you all for joining our weekly Tuesday morning, or depending on where you are in the world, maybe it's evening, LARVOL and Friends podcast. I'm Mark Gramley. I'm a director of oncology at LARVOL, and joined today by our new tiger, Raj Sharma. We call ourselves Tigers at LARVOL, and we take just 30 minutes to connect. Sometimes we talk from people within Larval. Sometimes we connect with friends of Larval or customers, and a variety of topics. And today we'll just be speaking with our new colleague, Raj. For those maybe uninitiated listening, to remind you of who we are, Larval does provides data solutions and software to the pharmaceutical industries and healthcare industries as well. And we're very pleased to be joined by a new account executive at Larval, Raj, who we'll just be chatting with today. So welcome everybody listening in, and a warm welcome to my new colleague, Raj. So hi, Raj.
Hey, Mark, how's it going? How are you doing today?
Doing well. This is actually an interesting way to meet. Raj is so new to Larval that we've connected via email, we've connected via chat, but this is actually the first time Raj and I are speaking. And I think that's the best way to join a company, to meet somebody on a live podcast, to connect. So it is great to meet you in these rather odd auspices, but it's a pleasure. So maybe to get things going, I think I would love, and I think everyone here would love, to learn a little bit about you, Raj. What brought you to us? What brought you on your professional journey over to be a larval tiger? And then we'll get the conversation going from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for that introduction, Mark. Yes, it is my second day, and Shahir had actually reached out and asked if I'd like to, I guess, make a bit of an introduction through this podcast. So I was happy to say yes. Very excited, obviously, to be here to give a bit of an introduction of myself. I am based out of Toronto, Ontario, so of course in Canada. And I guess my background kind of encompasses my education in pharma and biotechnology. That's actually what I did my master's in at the University of Guelph. I was there for about 7 years, so didn't want to leave. Wanted to just continue my education, doing my undergrad in biomedical sciences, a minor in biotech, getting fascinated by the industry, definitely wanting to get more involved, and then kind of diving into that master's where I ended up doing a bit of an internship at Roche. And throughout my history, all the way from high school, I've always been a customer oriented, front facing, sales kind of oriented individual. So quite a few interesting sales experiences. I've sold anything from, working at restaurants, literally at McDonald's at the age of 15, to door-to-door sales, selling pest control, traveling the US southern states, living out of hotels, Airbnbs, and then, going more professional and getting into the pharma sales for a bit. For the most recent experience, right before Larval, I was actually doing some tech sales. It's an incredible company called Pocket Health. And I was there for about 2 years, which I think in startup time, can be quite a long time. So a lot of ups and downs, quite the roller coaster of a ride. And I think for my next step, it made a lot of sense to, use my sales background and my education, and then kind of, delve deeper and return to the world of pharma and biotech. So yeah, if that kind of gives a bit of an introduction of my work and educational experiences. For fun, I'm a very, adventurous person. I like to be spontaneous, and, I love to go hiking, snowboarding, working on my skydiving license. Of course, I'm also a nice homebody, so I love cooking, reading, and movies, TV shows, things like that. So yeah, I hope that gave a good of a bit of an introduction of myself.
I appreciate that, Raj. That's a bit of a mixture, saying cooking, reading, and skydiving. That seems to conceptually sort of part ways.
It's
I'll
called
digress.
balance.
Yes, you got to balance out jumping out of a perfectly good airplane with a good book, I presume. So I appreciate that intro. Well, maybe I'd sort of ask if, something that's, for those listening, Larval is, well, in a pandemic situation, a lot of people have gone virtual, but we as a company have been completely virtual, work from home, fully remote team of 150 people for about 17 years. And I guess I'd just ask, coming from your background, both doing boots on the ground sales, if you will, versus maybe working with technologies. Did you have maybe a specific motivation in terms of joining this team of wanting to go remotely? That's obviously the buzzword of the age we live in. So
Yeah, I mean, originally when I completed my master's, I went into doing pharma sales, and it's funny because at that point, it was my kind of my first job, my first real job, and I'd be out there managing about 200 pharmacies in the Greater Toronto area. Driving out every single day, visiting 7 to 8, and promoting the product, talking about our trials and everything. And at that time, I felt actually pretty lonely sometimes, and I wanted to have that, office environment. And it's funny because I was craving that for such a long time, and then the pandemic hit, and so we were kind of forced into more remote roles. And I obviously worked at Pocket Health right before this, which is like it's pretty remote. However, most of the employees are based in Toronto, and so in that regard, you do kind of get to interact with them here and there. I think one of the biggest motivations for me is having the freedom and flexibility of being anywhere in the world, and getting to experience both work and travel perhaps at the same time. I think this does present a lot more opportunities where I can, visit a lot more family members who are spread out over the world, all over the US, and get the opportunity to spend time with them while still, progressing my career and my growth and development in the space. Of course, as I mentioned, just the fact that this is kind of taking me back into the pharma and biotech space. I get to be more involved, more aware of trends in the industry. And, that's where I wanted my career trajectory to kind of go towards. So I think that the challenge that it presents is also a fun one, being able to connect with everyone virtually and build those relationships and kind of tackling that, because a lot of companies will have to tackle that and continue to tackle it over the next many years, as most, individuals, most companies are going to end up remote. So I think, yeah, if that kind of answers your question, I do love the freedom, as most people do, but also the opportunity to spend time with family and friends around the world while working.
sure, absolutely. I appreciate that, Raj. And it gives you opportunity to go jump out of planes in multiple locations, or read books in multiple locations. Sorry, I can't help myself to make a joke. I wanted to say this is sort of an open question, and sort of the premises of the Larval and Friends call today is about business trends of 2022. And there's something I was thinking about last night, which is, well, there's obviously lots of different industries impacted by being remote, or what can be remote, or what's even viable to be remote. I think about it on a daily basis. My wife is a school teacher and spent a year working remotely, and there's obviously questions about the viability of that. But what I was thinking about in the context of biotech, I'm trained in biochemistry and pathology, and you have a background in biotech as well. I'm wondering, where, what can be remote, what can be leveraged by technologies.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned your previous position at Pocket Health, which I think does distributed or sort of app-based imaging.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm formulating my question properly, but where does the buck stop? What can be done through technology versus me as a former biochemist? I'm thinking you can't reproduce sitting at a bench in pharmaceuticals. You can't reproduce that at home. So I just wonder if you had any sort of perspectives on that or anything that you learned sort of working in that medical imaging information big data space um, in terms of where our industry goes, because I'm being a bit myopic thinking about
Hmm.
pharma and thinking about healthcare. So I
Hmm.
don't know if that was a question or a statement, but I wanted to see if you had any perspectives in that regard, Raj.
Yeah, I mean, working at Pocket Health, the main idea is, where I think, especially during the pandemic, having patients come in to pick up their imaging. So, what Pocket Health does is they essentially have a online image sharing platform, and this allows you facilities, healthcare providers to share imaging digitally through a cloud-based platform rather than having patients come in and pick up CDs. So that's an example of a tech company that is kind of helping to facilitate the transition in during the pandemic into a more digital world. And I think obviously I also have experience in the restaurant industry, having worked there in the past, and that was a huge industry that was largely impacted by the pandemic. And so not like a clear answer to your question, but I think wherever technology can, you know, I guess meet the potential that the opportunity that the pandemic has presented, it will work to kind of transition us into that digital space. So now more than ever before, things like AI, the metaverse, these are things that are important to facilitate the new world, and wherever technology can work to do that, I think there'll be many individuals that will kind of step up and develop ways that we can facilitate that transition. That's really just my best perspective on that. And it's an exciting time as well. It provides a lot of opportunity for entrepreneurship, a lot of outside the box thinkers that will look at what's not working, especially over the last couple of years, and try to determine solutions wherever they can, to kind of facilitate that change.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, that's something you mentioned the metaverse and VR. So that's something. Welcome to the team, Raj. That you'll be coming up to speed with as we implement that technology as part of our communications in house. And I was just reading about this morning. It seems like there's a lot of new software for actually surgical training. I
Oh
think the
wow.
VR software is,
Yep.
from what I'm seeing and what I was reading up on this morning, is like it's pushing to be a little bit more accurate. Of course, that's such a huge proposition. We're sort of in the internet in the early '90s, so that can be somewhat difficult.
Yeah.
Um, well, I wonder. I mean, I wonder aloud how far it goes.
Hmm.
I think there's great. Just thinking, I'm just thinking aloud about being within health, being within health tech, specifically because that's what we do as a company, but more for pharma. I wonder how far it goes when it's actually patient facing.
Hmm.
Um, I've been over the months and year. I guess we've been at this for a couple years now. Reading about people delaying sort of medical, optional, or delaying screenings, delaying
Hmm.
optional interventions, delaying going to the doctor because there's been so much fear for so long. And I think that creates an opportunity for something like providing medical imaging via an app instead of a CD. But I
Hmm.
wonder how far it goes. I wonder how comfortable does does at some point people say, no, that's too much. I need to go see someone in person. And I wonder
Hmm.
if there's almost a reaction to it. Um,
Yeah.
Again, I don't know if that's a question or a statement, but I think there's a balance. I think there's something of this human nature that you can only push it so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely a factor is what like age I guess people have maybe grown up with, which might be associated with their comfort level. If individuals are a little more skeptical with their PHI, like their personal health information, being shared on a cloud, and they're afraid of the risks associated with it. That's a factor that plays in. And then there's just individuals that would just rather go to those visits in person because they're afraid that maybe they're not about able to get across their condition or their state, and that kind of plays into their fears. So I think that kind of plays a factor. If you've grown up in a digital world, then it's something that's more so like, oh, finally they're able to do this. It's like people have been waiting for technology to not have to have them go in person. And again, it's all about more efficiency with their time. So I think that plays a huge factor in it. Even when I was working at Pocket Health, that was a huge thing that played in, is that sometimes when you had individuals that were just more familiar with traditional CD media, that's just what they were used to. They're just a lot more resistant to that change. Whereas others are just like, oh, finally, this is available. I've been waiting forever.
Sure, absolutely. I actually want to change gears for a second and ask a different type of question. As you've mentioned, you've worked. I think you mentioned you've worked everywhere from selling at McDonald's at 15, as you said, to health tech to restaurants and these things. And I think something that feeds into really the topic of today's discussion is, social media presence and online presence becomes increasingly important, to the point where if you don't have that type of presence, you might as well not be a business, regardless of what you do. And I was wondering if maybe you had any sort of experience, or did you see any sort of changes going from maybe when you were looking at pharmacy and retail at one point in your career, a couple years back, to going to sort of health tech online? Have you sort of seen any changes in sort of the mass action towards online presence? Because you've been in a lot of different industries, and I think maybe I think too myopically or simplistically about, well, social is just social, just get it out there. But I think there's differences in industries.
Yeah.
They're very, a restaurant versus a selling consumer care type products to a brick and mortar pharmacy to selling software. I wonder if you've seen any things over the course of your career that where you've seen any differences, any patterns you may have observed. It's important for me. I'm involved in the marketing efforts here at LARVOL, full disclosure. So maybe I'm taking this as free consulting. But I thought I'd posit it as a question to you, Raj.
Yeah, I mean, there's this element that we tried to use at Pocket Health, which is just like social selling, and so social media is a huge component, especially in today's world, of the influence a business has, and it's a great media to interact with your customers, to provide more value, and in turn be able to grow your business. I think at least in my experience, going back all the way to Galderma, working as a pharmacy and retail representative there, like social media campaigns were always, a standard part of the marketing efforts, of the outreach. But I think, what I have seen in terms of a trend is just its importance or influence has just grown significantly more. There's just so many different platforms, and you'll get different types of individuals on different platforms. So, somebody that's using Twitter might not be, on Instagram, and they might not be on Facebook, so you have these different audiences that you're able to capture. And I think, just in terms of a trend, it's just a very essential part, as you mentioned, of any business. And I think, there's a lot that you can gain and provide in terms of value from leveraging a platform like that in the appropriate way. So yeah, I think, that's the main perspective that I can add on that.
Fair enough. I can appreciate that. And I think that's, well, one could argue, I don't mean to get political, but these platforms become more and more consolidated as well. So that's a completely separate topic. But,
Yeah.
I think there's issues of innovation versus, the consolidation of, and again, I'm not speaking on behalf of my company. I forgot to do the disclosure early in our podcast here. I'm not speaking on behalf of LARVOL at this point, but everything. There's so much that has to go through. If you look at the main platforms of your Google, your Apple, your Twitter, and it's sort of siphoned through that. But I think there should be a lot of opportunity for uh, expanding that technology and open up competition.
Yeah, I
In
think
that regard.
we'll definitely see, more innovation over the years. But you're completely right. A lot of the current platforms, it's more like consolidating. Clubhouse was actually a pretty
Mhm.
unique platform that I was on. I think I might get back on it if it's still available. But I thought that that was a neat idea to kind of enter this chat room, and it's just there's a public forum, there's speakers, there's panelists, and then a variety of audience members that can raise their hand and ask these questions, and provides a good medium for discussions on interesting topics, and once again helps provide value to each other, which you might not get as easily from some of the other platforms. So that was definitely one of my favorites.
Sure, and you're in good company. This forum actually was on Clubhouse at one time before you switched over to LinkedIn. And again, I'm not speaking on behalf of my company, saying which I would prefer. I think both platforms are great, and I think there's some room. It shows a room for innovation. I think Clubhouse still is something that's really exciting, and there's almost a relaxing element of it without being on video. For those of us on the call who are quite familiar with being on video calls, some of us for a number of years, there's something unique to sort of having a nice open discussion on different types of platforms like that.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe it's a leading comment or question, which I referenced earlier, is that you're coming into our team as a new Tiger using VR, and I was wondering if you actually had any prior interactions with that type of technology in the metaverse. And I'm not just saying this to see if I need to help you out in the next couple of days to get you on the technology, but I thought I'd ask your thoughts on that, even in a philosophical way, or any experience to date.
The most experience I have, and I'd mentioned I'm a huge movie and TV buff, is watching Ready Player One. It's a
Hmm.
fantastic movie. Apart from that, I have to be honest, I don't have a lot of VR experience, but it's something that has definitely fascinated me. I think what my general approach is that I want to wait until, or even maybe subconsciously be oblivious to it until it's the technology is so great that I'm just gonna be in love with it, right? So I'm excited to see how far it's progressed now. I actually get an Oculus on Friday, so I'll get to kind of experience that fully on Friday onwards. But so far, I've just been on spatial.io. So I've seen kind of like the web version of it, which is funny. I had my roommate also look at it, and it was very similar to kind of like Sims, which I did grow up playing. But I got to, of course, meet
Fair.
Bruno at his office within the metaverse, and it was just a very neat and unique experience. And I'm very much looking forward to get to explore it a lot more.
Well, fair enough. Well, I remember years ago, actually, I think it was even before we started as a company, this metaverse experiment, this directive that we're doing.
Hmm.
Bruno sent me the book Ready Player One, and I
Really?
didn't know I didn't know what this was going to translate to, and I think there's also an inherent irony about a book, a physical book about Ready Player One. I don't know if that's registering with anybody, but that's the type of irony that makes me laugh. So,
Have you seen the
uh,
movie then yourself?
no, I've seen the movie. I've seen the
Okay,
movie. Watched it a couple
fantastic.
times. It's quite good. And I only
Yeah.
got halfway through the book because, again, ironically, why would I read a book about the subject? But I digress. Um, so, well. maybe we'll sort of leave it there, Raj. I wanted to definitely thank you for joining us today. A little bit last minute notice. Wanted to say, of course, welcome to the team,
Mhm.
and looking forward to you being Tiger and going to be a successful account executive here now in your first couple days. And wanted to maybe leave the last word over to you to see if there's any comments you wanted to put out. I would say to the team, but frankly, we're speaking to the universe right now here on LinkedIn Live. So, any final comments, and maybe we'll leave it there.
Yeah, I mean, very excited to be here. I know that, just speaking to the topic of today in terms of business trends, the main perspective that I have gained over the last couple of years is that, going more remote, I think it's very important to prioritize customer experience because sometimes it's even more challenging doing it remotely. So being able to kind of optimize for uniqueness and kind of create new ways of building that relationship, such as the metaverse, such as VR, and focusing on that online connection, I think will be very important. Being able to build that trust with customers, that's kind of my perspective when it comes to business trends. I'm very much looking forward to go on this adventure, and every single person that I meet so far at Larval, even though we might be thousands of miles away, I think everyone has been easy to build that connection with so far. So I think the kind of people that the company has kind of accumulated, they're very much remote first individuals, and they're willing to kind of take on that challenge. So yeah, I'm very excited to be here, and I
Mhm.
look forward to growing with the company.
Sounds great, and it would only get better from here, Raj. Just to mention that. Trust me. I mean, the day that you start interacting in the virtual meetings, the metaverse itself, it's an amazing experience. It was actually quite good,
Mm,
quite transforming for me, for my own career actually.
yep.
So, before we end the call, Raj, we usually give a takeaway phrase, or it could be a word, it could be a phrase, it could be a sentence that you think that the audience should take from you before the call ends. So maybe
Ooh.
you can think about that, and then we can say bye to the audience.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I forgot I should think about something like that. Yeah, I mean, I would just leave you with the statement, always optimize for uniqueness. I think one thing that we do here at Larval is when there's so much information out there, you try to filter and give what's most valuable. And in terms of a value proposition, as an individual or as a company, it's important to optimize for uniqueness. So that would be the statement that I would leave maybe the audience with.
Hmm.
And
Okay,
if,
sounds great. Optimize for uniqueness. That's the phrase to catch from today's. Yeah,
and if
you were saying
yeah,
something, Mark.
optimize for uniqueness. And if you're going to jump out of a plane, read a book when you hit the ground.
Exactly.
Thank you, Raj.
All
We
right.
appreciate it.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
very
You're
much,
welcome.
guys. Thank you for tuning in. Have a very nice day.
Absolutely. You too. Bye now. Cheers.
Cheers.
See ya.